Okay, let's dive right in. October 2025. Social media star Nara Smith, famous for that perfect from-scratch kitchen vibe, she announces the birth of her fourth child, Fawnie Smith.
Right, the usual curated announcement moment we see online.
Exactly. But then, just 14 days after that public post, a single photo appears on her Instagram stories. It's meant to be casual, Nara holding the baby. But she's wearing low-rise linen pants, and you can clearly see, she's flaunting her abs. And the internet just exploded.
Yeah, the reaction was immediate. Just waves of disbelief. You saw comments everywhere like, baby, where? And Nara, this is insane.
It wasn't just chatter, was it? It felt different.
Oh, absolutely. That one detail, those abs, it basically triggered this huge authenticity crisis. This wasn't just gossip. It was a direct hit on an influencer whose entire brand, her whole thing, is built on showing, the performance of labor.
Welcome to Starscope Report. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Jamie.
We're here to break down all the Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and the biggest influencer scandals.
From red carpet moments to those TikTok controversies that just take over, we get into the stories behind the headlines.
And today, we are doing a deep dive into just how fragile these modern influencer brands can be.
We're going to unpack how Nara Smith built this whole empire on, from-scratch domestic perfection.
Why that specific image made her so vulnerable to this particular rumor, the surrogacy one.
And crucially, the strategy she used, this kind of magic pivot away from just denying it factually, and how that actually boosted her brand's marketability. It's quite something.
Okay, so before the crisis really hit, let's break down that brand. What's the core of Nara Smith, Inc., really?
Well, okay, she's 24, South African-German model, married to Lucky Bluesmith. That's the baseline.
Right, the model power couple.
But she really pivoted, didn't she? From runways to, the kitchen. Her fame now comes from those short videos, the ones.
Oh yeah, homemade pasta, homemade bubblegum.
Exactly, even homemade cereal. And the constant refrain is from scratch.
And the look is just as important as the cooking, isn't it? It's the whole package.
Totally. It's built on, I'd say, 3 pillars. First, obviously, the from-scratch labor itself. It implies effort. Second, the aesthetic presentation. She's always, full glam, wearing these extravagant outfits, never looks flustered, never breaks a sweat.
While kneading dough.
Right. And third, that signature narration, her voice. That soft kind of ASMR whisper, it makes it all feel so calm, so serene.
But there's a huge contradiction there, isn't there? She pushes back hard against the Tradwife label, says she's a working mom, cooks out of passion, not duty.
And that rejection is key, strategically. What she's actually doing is aestheticizing really difficult domestic labor. She makes it look beautiful, aspirational, through this lens of, let's be honest, extreme wealth and conventional beauty.
So she swaps duty, which nobody likes, for passion.
Exactly. Her job is the performance, performing this highly aesthetic, from-scratch version of motherhood and homemaking.
Doesn't that level of perfection, though, just invite skepticism? If it looks too easy, people start wondering how it's really done.
You nail it. People were already looking for cracks. There were already whispers online. She must have a team of assistants, or she probably can't even cook that well.
Because it felt unrelatable.
Right. The perfection itself primed the audience for allegations of inauthenticity. So the surrogacy rumor, in that context, was almost symbolic. It was the ultimate attack on her from-scratch performance because it questioned the most fundamental female labor, childbirth itself. Had that been outsourced too?
Wow. And you mentioned she has this way of being, strategically neutral, almost a blank slate.
Yeah, she avoids taking strong stances on anything controversial, which makes her, as some analysts call it, an empty billboard. People project their own anxieties onto her about wealth, about motherhood, about women's roles today.
And that neutrality made her the perfect target for this kind of crisis, sparked by just one photo.
It created the perfect storm.
Okay, let's get into the timeline. Because wasn't there already some surprise around this fourth baby? She'd said number 3 was the last one.
Yeah, she had. So the 4th pregnancy announcement itself raised eyebrows, increased the scrutiny from the get-go.
Okay, so walk us through the dates. It happened fast.
Super fast. September 27th, 2025, that's the actual birth date, apparently coincided with her own birthday, kept private initially.
Then October 11th, that's the public announcement. Instagram post, balloons, the whole deal.
Right. But the bomb drops on October 24th. That's the Instagram story with the abs.
So crucially, that's 27 days after the birth, but only 14 days, 2 weeks, after the public knew about the birth.
And that's the key disconnect. That's the detail that blew everything up.
Why did the format, the Instagram story, matter so much here?
Because Instagram stories have this perception, right? They feel more raw, less polished, more authentic than a grid post. It's supposed to be the behind-the-scenes look.
So the medium screamed real, but the message.
The message, the flat abs so soon after a birth announcement, screamed impossible, or at least highly improbable to a huge number of people. It created this, cognitive dissonance, a clash that your brain struggles to resolve.
How do you reconcile this is real with this can't be real?
Exactly. And the surrogacy theory offered a neat, immediate solution. If you assume the premise that she just gave birth is false, then the photo, her actual body, could still be true. It lets people resolve that uncomfortable clash.
So the crisis demanded a factual answer because the format itself felt like a promise of authenticity that was then broken by the content. How does she respond? Her brand isn't built on facts, it's built on vibes.
She responds with what I'd call a masterclass in strategic communication. The metaphysical pivot.
Metaphysical pivot. Okay, that sounds like avoiding the question, like deflection.
Well, her critics certainly saw it that way, but strategically, it was incredibly effective. Her response came on October 27th. The media called it a post where she seemingly hits back. Notice the seemingly, because it wasn't a direct denial.
Okay, break down this Magic Bodies post for us. What did she actually say?
Okay, 4 key parts. First, the metaphysical pivot itself. She immediately takes the conversation out of the physical realm, abs, surrogacy dates, and elevates it. She starts talking about women's bodies being pure magic, divinely designed, the bridge between heaven and earth.
Right. Less biology, more spirituality.
Exactly. Takes it somewhere you can't really argue with using facts. Second part, the universal truth. She brings it back down slightly, aligns herself with the common experience. With that, our bodies transform and stretch, trying to connect.
Okay, a little relatability.
Then, part 3, the absolute core, the implicit denial. This is the closest she gets to refuting the claim. She says, I used to feel the need to bend and force it back into how it used to look, only to realize that it has been home to 4 other bodies.
Been home to, that's carefully worded. She doesn't explicitly say her body carried them all directly, just that it was a home.
Precisely. It addresses the core accusation using metaphor, not fact. It implies she carried them without stating it unequivocally. It's beautifully ambiguous.
A non-answer answer.
Totally. And finally, part 4. The brand recentering. She loops back to her core values. This final stage is filled with grace and slowing down, reinforcing that serene, aspirational vibe. It was pure strategic neutrality.
So it works like a Rorschach test. You see what you want to say.
Absolutely. If you're a fan, you see this beautiful spiritual clapback, you feel her pain, you admire her grace, your loyalty is deepened.
And if you're a skeptic,
you see a complete dodge.
Right.
Someone deflecting a very physical, very valid question with vague talk about magic and heaven. She infuriates you, but you're still talking about her. She wins either way because both interpretations keep her relevant.
And that ambiguity definitely fueled the fire because the public reaction was all over the place. It felt like this one incident became a magnet for every existing feeling people had about her.
Oh, completely. We saw roughly 4 main themes bubble up.
Let's start with the obvious one. Skepticism, maybe envy, definitely some insecurity. That seemed dominant on places like Reddit, X.com.
Yeah, a huge wave of comments just rejecting the photo and her response as totally unrelatable. People immediately jumped to accusations of, lipo and tummy tucks, or saying the photo must be edited.
I touched a nerve about postpartum bodies.
Deeply. You saw so much raw honesty, like one user who said, some of us mere mortals are out here with bellies looking like deflated balloons after just one baby. Of course I'm jealous. That perfection just highlighted the gap.
Okay, but then the polar opposite. Reaction theme 2. The staunch defense. Her hardcore fans.
They circled the wagons immediately. Any criticism was dismissed as just vile jealousy or pure hate, full stop.
How do they explain the photo?
They often rationalized it. You saw comments like, dude, who cares if she's pregnant again? She can afford it and she's a good mom. For them, the criticism wasn't valid. It was just proof of her success making others envious.
Okay, so besides the direct reactions to the photo, how did this incident get pulled into pre-existing critiques of her whole brand?
Right. It became ammunition for other arguments. We saw 2 big ones resurface. First, the idea of racialized jealousy.
Related to her marriage to Lucky Blue Smith.
Exactly. The argument emerged, particularly from some defenders, that the intense negativity was rooted in race anger, that, quote, a black girl took their white boy of the decade. They framed the surrogacy rumor itself as a kind of microaggression against her family.
And the second co-opted critique,
Yeah.
tied to her lifestyle.
Yes, linking it back to perceptions of her as Mormon propaganda or pushing a kind of Tradwife aesthetic, even though she rejects the label.
So the focus shifted.
Completely. This incident was used to issue warnings, especially to younger followers, essentially saying, don't get taken in by the glamour, with comments like, girlies at 18, you don't have Nara Smith money, so this ain't your sign to have kids early. The debate blew way past the abs and into much bigger cultural fights.
So, pulling back, what does this whole episode tell us about influencer brands built on this kind of hyper-aesthetic perfection? Let's hit the key insights. Insight 1. The vulnerability of perfection.
Yeah, this really exposed the core weakness, didn't it? That surrogacy rumor went right for the jugular of her brand. The fantasy that difficult labor cooking, mothering can be effortless and authentic at the same time.
The flat abs were just too effortless.
Exactly. It broke the fantasy. It forced people to question if the hardest labor of all, childbirth, even happened in the way it was presented. It highlights that fundamental tension. We want aspiration, but we also crave authenticity. And sometimes those are fundamentally incompatible.
Okay, insight 2. The success of just absorbing the crisis, because it wasn't resolved, right? The skeptics are still out there, probably more convinced than ever.
Absolutely not resolved. But from a purely brand perspective, you kind of have to say it was a success, maybe even a huge success.
How so?
Because by doing that metaphysical pivot, by staying neutral and ambiguous, she achieved several things. She shifted the conversation away from the messy physical details. She solidified the intense loyalty of her fan base. And crucially, she generated massive engagement, including rage bait from critics.
All those clicks, comments, views.
Translate directly into visibility, relevance, and ultimately profit in the influencer economy. The controversy kept her name everywhere.
So the takeaway is, maybe it's better for a brand like hers not to solve the problem. Just absorb it.
It really seems that way in this case. By refusing to give a clear answer, by remaining that empty billboard, she keeps everyone projecting, everyone guessing, everyone talking.
That ambiguity becomes the most valuable asset.
Yeah. In the specific influencer economy, sometimes staying controversial is more profitable than being clear. She ensures she stays relevant by letting the public keep arguing about her. The mystery keeps people watching.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.